I'm Rebecca Heimbottom, and this is the Red Lipstick Republic fake news broadcast, where we bring you all the fake news, all the gossips and rumors that we can scavenge. Basically, we are your world soap opera reporters. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoy the program. Let's get into it. This week, we have a very clear thread come through the main fake news, mainstream reporting. Mainly human peasants, that's you and me, let's not delude ourselves, that start off with basically depopulation. Let's face it, that's how it is. We start off with a story from Canada, where a brave but foolish Ottawa police detective cares to look into suspicious babies' lives that have unfortunately been shortened. The story title is Canadian Cop Punished for Investigating a Sudden Death After the Jabby Jabbers in Babies. A Canadian police detective has been found guilty of discreditable conduct. Now, that is a word that you can be charged with. Discreditable conduct for investigating a surge of sudden deaths amongst little itsy weetsy beatsy tiny baby who died after receiving the jibber jabbers. Now, you're going to have to read between the lines there. Ottawa Police Service Detective Health Gruce was charged as she started to investigate a large number of cases of sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, in December of 2021. Gruce found that the SIDS cases skyrocketed after the jibber jabbers were rolled out for public use that year. The cop believed that the sudden deaths were linked to the jibber jabbers, which all of the victims had received. Retired Superintendent Christopher Renwick, my apologies, who presided over the proceedings, when ruled, that Detective Gruce brought discredit upon the reputation of the Ottawa Police Services when she investigated a potential link between the sudden death of several infants and the jibber jabber that was rolled out. Now, because the reputation, sidebar, was discredited because she was bringing shame to the said narrative, that is more important than investigating the actual demise of children that have no other person looking out for them, because their parents obviously haven't connected it because they don't have enough information from other parents. We skip a little bit and we move on. Beginning in December 2021, Gruss began questioning if the jibber jabbers played a role in the increasing number of infant deaths she was reportedly witnessing. She was doing her job. Accordingly, she attempted to determine if either of the babies or their parents had received the experimental jibber jab. After it was revealed that Gruce was conducting this investigation, she was suspended from performing her duties by the Ottawa Police Service Professional Standards Unit. So professional standards are much more important than investigating a potential crime these days. Okay, we will move on. Don't ask too many questions, move quickly. Officials then filed a disciplinary charge against Gruce and forced her to defend her actions in front of a tribunal. So Colombo is out, and I guess Hollywood lies about how police officers and people in power actually try to look out for us. So beware. That's our first story. And there is more to the story, but we won't cover it all. If you want, you can go on Slane News. On Slane News, you can find this story at your leisure. Canada sure is a very strange place to live in these days. One cop gets reprimanded, pardon me, for caring about an increase in SID epidemic, but then the entire system is starting to look more and more like a death cult. This next story helps support perhaps why the caring police officer ran into trouble. This next story that I bring to you is called Canada Moves to Begin Euthanizing Children Without Parental Consent. Now, if you don't believe in the devil, well, then I guess you're maybe not alone, but you are probably starting to be less and less popular in believing that there is no such thing as evil. I'll just read out a couple of things that are interesting in this article. The Canadian government has launched a campaign to promote a new push towards beginning euthanizing children with mental health issues without their parents' consent. Now, the scary thing about this is that they do not talk about what mental health they are talking about. Do they talk about mental health with regards to children that are unhappy with their school? They're unhappy because they're not popular, or is it children with autism? Is it with children with Down syndrome? Is it children with bipolar, ADHD, ADD? We don't know. The new scheme seems to open up the country's medical assistance in dying made to children. Liberal Party Minister Mark Carney's government described these children who have been eligible for assigned suicide using the alarming and vague term as mature minors. That's called an oxymoron, people. According to the government promotional materials, children with mental health issues would be euthanized without parental consent, under the expanded laws. In the post on X, former Twitter, Lane wrote, "You have to be a special kind of demonic to advocate for MAID for young, vulnerable people and people who are suicidal. No, duh. Imagine walking into a clinic for help and being told that the world would be better without you. Before, that would have been punishable because somebody is pushing you towards doing that, which was then illegal. Okay, but when the government does it, it's kind of like money printing. When there's quantitative easing, that's legal, but when there's money printing by, say, a mafia, that's illegal because the government's not doing it. As long as the government does it, it becomes somehow legal. Moving on. We're moving on. That you should cave to the lies the devil on your shoulder is telling you, and that it would be more affordable for Canadian healthcare system if you were gone." That's demonic right there. Moving on, skipping down a little in the article, a mature minor is a child or teen, so it doesn't have to be a teen, but it could be a child or a teen. How young, it does not specify, who is deemed capable of making a decision for MAID MAID. The paper states, that's it. This would essentially remove the minimum age of eligibility. The committee also suggested parents may not be consulted and wouldn't need to consent to their child's death via MAID. Okay? But if someone kills your child, or if you do that, or if they decide to kill themselves without this whole program, that's also unclear if that's still legal. However, the vagueness of this term, mature, could open up the scheme to children of all ages. The flyer goes on to argue that according to the Canadian government, killing children without parental consent is an example of protecting the most vulnerable citizens. Okay, that's called a mind twist. That's called gaslighting, people. Children are uniquely vulnerable. No kidding. The informational pamphlet says, Canada's first priority must be to provide high quality medical care for children. Beginning in March though, okay, so just on that very quickly, that's gaslighting. So you're telling me that the government is telling you that they're protecting your children because they're allowing them to decide whether they want to live or not when they maybe have a period, or they have emotional, problems at school, or they're not popular, or they're having a meltdown, or they're having a tantrum, or they're trying to get attention. Children don't necessarily know the value of the consequence that comes from a decision until they're a little older. Their brains are not formed yet. They're not allowed to buy cigarettes. They're not allowed to buy marijuana, but they're allowed to choose life and death options. Okay, we're moving on to the very last thing. The thing that is actually coming through in Canada, Canada, Beginning in March 2027, the government will begin euthanizing Canadians suffering from mental illness. Again, they do not specify what mental illness. There is no framework in terms of what is a mental illness and what is not. Let me just ask you this before we move on to the next story. Is the government going to have the overreach of being able to look into your files? And if you ever went to a psychiatrist, shrink, or any other kind of mental health helper, are they going to be able to deem you them and then eventually to be slotted for the MAID program because you are mentally ill? Or if you've ever got medication for depression, anxiety, ADHD, or any of those things, are you then going to be pre-qualified already? And if you walk into an office, say that, where they are going to tell you, you know, it's actually really expensive to keep you alive. You're not worth as much as you are, like you're worth more dead than you are alive. Is that going to be a prerequisite because you say you went to a psychiatrist? And there are many people, it's promoted profusely to go to a psychiatrist, and now that in itself potentially will land you in the chair where you will qualify to be stuck with a needle. This Canadian rabbit hole gets stranger and stranger as we move along. Our governments overtax its citizens and then deletes them to save on money. Oh, Canada. So far, we have covered babies perishing, mental health sufferers are being cleaned up by MAID, and now, to ensure that no one is conveniently getting missed, let's not get born altogether. This story heading reads, John Hopkins studies a 1.9 million woman that confirms that the gibber jab is a depop of nations. Let me get into this article to give you an attempt of understanding where they're at. All right. Now, I had to, of course, paraphrase the title of this because I want to be able to bring this article to you. All right. A major new study from the world-renowned scientists at Johns Hopkins University has confirmed that the gibber jabbers are reducing human population by lowering birth rates. All right, so we're getting even in front of the problem. They're getting proactive as opposed to reactive. Let's say that. It is the most comprehensive evaluation to date of the association between the gibber jabbers and the reproductive disturbances that have been happening. This investigation includes a staggering 1.9 million women from around the world. The team of researchers analyzed 17 individual global studies related to birth rates and menstrual cycles among women who had received the gibber jabs. The study warns of significant risks to women's fertility and birth rates following the gibber jab, aligning with previous warnings of the reproductive destruction caused by those gibber jabs. All right. Outcomes assessed including changes in menstrual cycle lengths, heavier flow, intermenstrual bleeding, and postmenstrual bleeding. So think about this, ladies and gentlemen, mostly ladies, because most ladies have menstruals. Well, now apparently, I'm not getting into that. Ladies, just think about it. If you've had any of these symptoms, this is what the findings show. The women included in this study were mostly menstruating, non-pregnant, non-lactating women between 18 and 50. The researchers also included 3 studies involving postmenstrual women. The study found a 19% higher relative risk of increased menstrual cycle length followed the gibber jabs injections. Now, you are welcome to go and read the entire article as it begins to meander into the medical weeds that we as the common folk are meant to get lost in. So, go to Slay News and find the article. Enjoy, you're welcome. And finally, to the most important news that obviously is the most important news for us to survive and have well-being. By the way, that was sarcasm. If you live in a certain part of North America, which is America, look out for these very important things. Red-eyed zombie bugs emerge hungry for sex. Yes, sex. I'm being very careful. After 17 years of slumber, so they're really hungry for it. They're very horny. After lying dormant for nearly 2 decades, billions of sex-crazed cicadias, I don't know how it is, cicadias, will be emerging from their subterranean sleeping pods hungry for love. However, this year, many will be extra horny thanks to the spread of a creepy The Last of Us esqui zombie fungus. So that's actually the fungus that they have right now. It's like a sexually transmitted disease in these bugs. Moving down the line, there's a whole bunch of other very interesting facts that we don't need to go through. And these cyclical critters are expected to break around in 13 states this year, including New York. So watch out, New York. You're going to have some creepy crawlies. They're like those things that make a lot of noise, except this year they're going to be extra heavy. The love bug's goal is to find a mate and procreate in the 4 to 6 weeks they spend above ground before dying off. After copulating, the female deposits eggs so that her offspring can repeat the cycle when they emerge in the years 2042. So you have some time to prepare for these zombie bugs. And then it finally says their ear-splitting siren sounds, which is so loud that it has prompted police calls, is actually a mating song that is used to attract prospective partners. Unfortunately, for many cicadias, that's how it's supposedly pronounced, possibly millions, mating will be especially intense due to the genital destroying fungi called Massospora cicadia that ramps up their sex drive and turns them into zombies. Believe me or not, this is a true article. Well, and there you have it, folks. That's all we have for you tonight. Until we meet next week, thank you for your time and have a good night.